Some women ride into a town and nobody notices. Some women ride in and everybody pretends not to notice. She was the second kind, and the two men waiting outside the Silver Horn Saloon were about to find out why that difference matters. The hard way.
Now, before we continue, can you kindly tell us where you are watching from and drop your comment and also subscribe, because the story is about to get real.
Dustfall was the kind of town that had given up on itself without saying it out loud. The buildings were still standing, the bank still opened at 9. The general store still smelled of flour, nails, and years of selling the same things to the same tired people. On the surface, it looked like a normal town, doing normal things. But anyone who stayed longer than a day could feel something was wrong. People walked a little faster than they needed to. Eyes straight ahead. Nobody looking at each other. Conversations stopped when certain names came up. Even the sheriff's office had curtains that were always closed. A town that looked alive, but felt scared. She rode into Dustfall on her horse Ember just after 2 in the afternoon, and felt all of this within the first few minutes. She was not passing through. She had a reason to be here. The kind of reason that comes in short messages, saying very little, but meaning a lot. A woman named Clara Holt had sent for her. 3 short lines, a family in danger, and time running out. She read the message twice, then she read the second paper, a report about land theft across 3 different towns. Families destroyed, land taken, one entire town erased from the map like it never existed. One name kept appearing in that report. Victor Crane. She read every page carefully. Then she folded both papers and put them in her coat, and rode for 4 days straight. Ember walked calmly down the main street of Dustfall, ears up, sensing everything around her. She let the horse read the town while she read it herself. 2 sets of instincts, catching what others would miss, and both of them noticed the same thing. 2 men standing on the porch of the Silver Horn Saloon. Not relaxing, not passing time, waiting. The kind of waiting that has a purpose. She noticed them, said nothing. Rode past to the stable, settled Ember first. Water, feed, rest. The horse came before everything else. Always had. Then she walked back to the saloon. Inside it was dim and quiet. Too quiet for a Friday afternoon. A few men sat at tables, heads down, not talking much. She stepped to the counter. Whiskey. The bartender poured it without a word. She drank slowly, then ordered another. And while she stood there, she listened carefully. Not to what people were saying, but to what they were being careful not to say. One name kept coming up in whispers. Soft, careful, like saying it too loud might cause trouble. Victor Crane. The bartender leaned across the counter without looking at her directly. Those 2 men outside weren't there this morning, he said quietly. They showed up after Crane's man at the stable sent word that a stranger had ridden in on a red horse. A pause. You might want to use the back door. She set the glass down slowly. I don't use back doors, she said, and walked straight to the front. The afternoon sun hit her face as she pushed through the saloon doors and stepped outside. 1 step. Stop! The 2 men had moved from the posts. They were now standing in the middle of the porch, blocking the steps, each one holding a full mug of beer. Smiling, not in a friendly way, in the way that means trouble is coming and they're enjoying it. She looked at them. They looked at her. The first was big and broad, with a jaw that had been broken once and never healed straight. Long, dirty coat, 1 gun on his hip. He had the look of a man doing exactly what he'd been told to do, and loving it. His name was Decker, Crane's enforcer, the man you saw right before something bad happened. The second was younger, mid-20s, lean and sharp-faced, with 2 guns and a hat tilted in a way that said he thought he was important. Fast with a gun, even faster with his mouth. not smart enough to know the difference. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. They threw the drinks at the same time. Both mugs. The beer hit her like a cold wave across the chest, soaking through her coat all the way to her skin. Foam dripped from her hat brim and landed on the porch boards at her feet. From inside the saloon, through the window. Laughter. The kind of mean laughter, like they had been waiting for this. She stood absolutely still. The beer dripped slowly to the ground. She looked at Decker. She looked at the younger one. They were still smiling. That was their mistake. Not throwing the drink. Not the public humiliation in front of a whole saloon. The real mistake was that they kept smiling, even after they saw her face. Which meant that whatever Crane had told them about the stranger on the red horse, it wasn't enough, not even close. Slowly, she reached up, took her hat off, tilted it so the beer poured off the brim, put it back on. The younger man opened his mouth to speak. He never got the chance. What happened next was so fast. Nobody could agree on what came first. 2 shots. Decker and the younger man went down and did not get up. She walked calmly down the porch steps and into the street without looking back, inside the Silver Horn Saloon. The laughter stopped instantly. She was halfway down the road when a rider came toward her fast. A woman, pushing her horse harder than she needed to. She pulled up sharply and looked at the wet coat, the calm face. "You're the one my mother sent for," she said. Rosa Holt, 26 years old, strong, but carrying something heavy behind her eyes. She reached into her saddlebag and pulled out a leather pouch. Inside, papers, handwritten, pages and pages of them. "I've been keeping records for 13 months, Rosa said. Every threat Crane made, every payment he demanded, every one of his men who showed up at our ranch. Names, dates, exactly what they said." She held the pouch out. "My mother doesn't know I have these. She would have said it was too dangerous." She took the papers and read quickly, then looked up. "You did all of this alone, every night, while my mother thought I was sleeping." She placed Rosa's papers in her coat next to the federal report. 2 documents that were strong on their own. Together, they were something else entirely, the full picture, the big pattern across 3 towns, and the small, careful proof from one family's door. "These are better than what I have," she said. "I know," Rosa replied. "That's why I was riding to town." A pause. "There's something else." Rosa's voice stayed calm, but her eyes changed. 3 nights ago, 2 of Crane's men came to the ranch. They said we can keep the house if my mother signs over the land by end of week. "What did your mother say?" "No. End of week is tomorrow." "Yes." She looked down the long empty road. "Ride with me," she said. The Holt Ranch looked like a place that had been fighting to survive, and was starting to lose. Broken fences fixed with whatever was nearby. A barn roof patched with different wood. A yard with no room left for more mistakes. Clara Holt stepped outside when she heard them ride in. Older, strong, but worn down to the bone. She looked at the wet coat. "They were waiting for you." That night, the 3 of them sat at the kitchen table with every paper spread out in front of them. The federal report, Rosa's records, her own notes. Together they built a picture none of them could have built alone. "You can't fight all his men at once," Rosa said. "Not at once," she agreed. "But you don't have to." She looked at the papers. "Crane built something, and everything he built depends on certain pieces staying in place. You remove the right pieces, and the whole thing falls by itself." She started before sunrise. Not with guns, with something quieter and more powerful. The man who had been signing Crane's papers at the records office, a nervous little man named Webb, sat across from her and watched his own name appear again and again in Rosa's notes. His hands shook. "What do I need to sign?" he asked. "Everything that undoes what you signed before." By noon, the legal foundation of everything Crane had built was filed with the Federal Land Office. Locked in, impossible to undo. Two of Crane's men received a visit from a federal officer who arrived on the morning stage. They looked at each other and made the smart choice. Gone before supper. That evening, Crane sent 4 men to the Holt Ranch. The ranch was empty. Clara and Rosa had already moved. The 4 men found a dark house, a cold stove, and on the kitchen table, one piece of paper. "You were looking in the wrong place." The senior man read it twice. He understood what it meant. He looked at the 3 men behind him. "We're going back," he said. By midnight, 4 more of Crane's men had quietly left Dustfall. On the 3rd morning, she walked into Victor Crane's house through the back, one guard, watching the wrong direction. She came from the north. He reached for his gun. 3rd man in Dustfall to make that mistake. 3rd to regret it. Victor Crane was at his desk. Neat gray hair, clean suit, polished boots. The kind of man who had always paid other people to do the dangerous parts. He looked up like he was expecting someone else. His hand moved toward the drawer. "Don't," she said. Quiet, flat. He stopped. "Everything has been filed," she said. "Everything you built is already coming apart. The only thing you have left is your freedom, and that depends on the next 30 seconds. His eyes moved slowly around the room. "What happens to me if I hand over the papers?" "You wait in the Dustfall jail for the federal marshal who is already riding." Crane's hand moved fast. The small gun came up clean. It didn't fire. She had already moved. The shot hit the wall. She closed the distance in half a second. The gun hit the far wall. Crane hit the floor hard, taking the chair and the bookcase with him. She stood over him. The neat hair was gone. The confidence was gone. The man on the floor had spent 30 years paying other people to handle exactly this moment. Now there was nobody left to pay. "The papers," she said. Same calm voice as before. He handed over a folder. She checked everything against what Rosa's records had told her to look for. It was all there. "Get up. You're walking to the jail yourself." She was walking Crane down Main Street when the last 2 men stepped off the Silver Horn porch. Same porch, same spot where Decker had stood 3 days before. One of them was Richie. He had been with Crane since the very first town, since the beginning. And Richie was not the kind of man who knew when something was finished. He already had his gun out. Crane stepped sideways, deliberately, putting space between himself and her, giving Richie a clear shot. She had seen men panic. She had seen men freeze. But the cold, quiet calculation in Crane's eyes as he stepped away told her everything about who he really was. Not just cruel, precise about it, even at the very end. Richie fired. The shot hit where she had been. She had already moved. Richie fired again. This one came close, close enough to feel, but she was already inside his reach. What followed was not a gunfight. It was fast. It was final. Richie went down and did not get up. The second man raised his gun. Ember moved. From the hitching post, 20 feet away, the horse had been watching since they turned onto Main Street. The moment the second man shifted his weight to shoot, Ember threw herself against the post with everything she had. The post ripped clean from the ground and slammed into his legs just as he fired. The shot went into the dirt. He went down hard. The deputy appeared from the direction of the jail. Just after everything was finished, as deputies do. He cuffed Crane. Then the second man, sitting in the dirt holding a broken wrist, from the porch of the Silver Horn. The bartender stepped out and looked at her. "Back door would have been easier," he said. She looked at the spot where it all started. "Probably," she agreed. The land was returned 3 days later. Rosa signed the papers. Not her mother, because Rosa had earned it. 13 months of careful work, alone, every night. The deed should carry her name. And it did. Clara watched her daughter sign and said nothing for a long time. Then quietly, "Your grandmother would have done the same thing." Rosa looked at her mother. "I know," she said. That night, the three of them ate supper together, and Rosa looked across the table and asked the question that always comes at the end of things like this. "Why do you do it?" She thought about the honest answer. "Because someone has to, and most people can't." Rosa shook her head. "That's not all of it." "No." She looked at the deed on the table, at Clara's worn hands, at the kitchen built over 20 years of hard work. That survived 13 months of someone trying to take it away. Because the other choice is a world where men like Crane always win. A pause. And I've seen enough of that world to know I don't want to live in it. The next morning, she was gone before sunrise. Riding north, ember steady beneath her, Dustfall fading quietly behind them. There is always another town, another family holding on, another man who decided other people's lives were his to take. She never knows what the next one will look like. She never does. And, somewhere behind her, in a town called Dustfall, two men finally understood something they learned a little too late. There are women you can push around. And then, there are women like her. They threw a drink on the wrong outlaw, and Dustfall will never forget it.